94.3 WYBC, the rhythm of the city and home of the Juan Castillo Morning Show. Good morning, New Haven family. This is Moving Target. I'm your host, Jay Kemp. And with me, as always, is the comrade, Remedy Sharif. What's good, brother?
Blessings, blessings. Super Saturday again.
It's still Super Saturday.
Hey, happy birthday, Maurice Bless Peters.
Yes.
Zakia Hassan.
Yes.
My Omi, my mother. Happy birthday.
I got her a gift in the car, by the way.
Yeah, let's get that to her.
Please.
And Joan Bynum, my ex-wife mother, but she's still one of the queen mothers.
No doubt.
One of the strongest women I know. So happy birthday to the three of them, yo. Blessings.
Happy born day to all of them beautiful people. And I gotta send love and light to the victims of the Virginia Beach shooting. Terrible. I don't know if you looked into that. Kalfani, I know we have some guests in the building we're going to go into. But yeah, I want to send love and light to those that are the victims of that. I'm not anti-gun, and I'm not with the whole gun laws and gun regulations, but we have to do something to begin to really tackle this issue, with people who just don't need weapons in their hands, period.
Yeah, it has to be some type of regulations there, man. It has to be some type. You can't take it from the people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it has to be some type of regulation.
Absolutely. I agree. But I still want my guns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not gonna lie.
And need it.
Well, because I don't know. I don't know when something's gonna listen. We have talks about martial law, and we'll talk about that stuff. And we talk about things really getting crazy.
Wherever you go, man, your head is on a constant swivel. I know that's for me. Like wherever I go, it's not in a nervous or out of control pattern, but wherever I go, more now than ever, because we always been, but more now than ever, I'm just like, all right, I'm here.
Yeah,
wherever it is, you're here and you're scanning a little bit just to see who's looking. You see somebody drooling in the corner. You better be on point and know what to do about it.
Well, yeah, but they could just be drooling because they have an issue.
Or they're hungry, right? You're real
There's
hungry,
a lot of
so
other
you're
reasons.
drooling, but no,
But no, I want to really send some peace, love, and light to everybody who is dealing with that trauma and that tragedy. It's terrible. It really is. So still Super Saturday, but sending that love and light to them and helping them, really hoping that they really persevere through this whole process, because that's exactly what it is.
Mental health. It boils back down to the mental health aspect of it all, man. We are, our melting pot of quote unquote country corporation. We some weird. It's weird
in America.
Real
spooky.
Mental space is real spooky here, man. It's a lot of trauma. It's a lot of damage.
Mental health is I think it's one of the main things that we need to look at because of so much social media we're taking in, because of so much
consumption of
look what we're seeing right now just on TV. Yeah, that's traumatic.
Yeah,
and that could be secondhand trauma for people. Somebody else probably already experienced a mass shooting, and here goes another one that they now are caused to relive.
I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So and then not to mention those that deal with the shootings every day. I think we just lost another young person who was shot 11 times.
Yeah, man, this is insane.
In New Haven. I mean, it's this is the reason why it's so important. And I still don't believe, I believe there's enough conversations being done about not enough. There needs to be more about mental health, but we really we need to start pushing the conversations into practice and start really providing resources and ways to say, okay, well, here's where you can deal with that trauma, especially for the young people.
And I'm a humble, I would encourage people to humble themselves. I know my situation in my life started turning once I went and started dealing with my mental health. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For issues and stuff. When I really said, you know what? Let me go sit down and talk to this person and see what this therapist really gonna help me. When I did that, things started, turning for the better.
Did you choose your therapist?
Yes.
So what kind of therapist did you choose? Man, woman? I mean, man, woman, black, white.
I chose the man. I tried to get a man of color, but at the time it was just like I wanted to go ahead and do this. I actually didn't do enough research to get a man of color. So when I seen the men come across, I called them, talked to them, and got a cool vibe from one of them out in Westville. And and went and seen him, man, and talked, and it was good. And you know, not a sexist thing. I just got a man because I understand men and you know women are gonna be able to relate to each other.
I don't know. I like a woman therapist,
Mm,
a black woman specifically. I don't know why. You
mm,
know, I just prefer that. I tried to have a man at one point, and yeah, and he was also younger than me. Not cool with that. I
yeah,
don't want the therapist younger than me. You haven't been through enough.
yeah, for real.
I don't care what
For
studies you
real.
have.
Yeah, look at your clock. You ain't been here long
You
enough.
know, you've been on here 30 years. I am 40 years old. You ain't been here enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man, I really want to encourage people to, yeah, humble themselves, find a therapist, find the resources. They out there. They out there. So yeah, man, I want to really get into our topic because we have a really great show right now. We have the director and producer of Questions of Justice. We have Aaron Garrison. Am I saying that last name right?
Yeah, Aaron Pedano Garrison.
Oh, let's make sure your mic is on. Okay, go ahead, brother.
Aaron Pedano Garrison.
Say the middle name.
Pedano
Pedano.
is my second last name.
Okay, all right. So I didn't want to say it and then be like, I
Yeah,
just
no
jacked
hyphen,
that all
no
up.
hyphen. When my wife's grandmother was surviving in World War II, she didn't need a hyphen in her name, so they didn't like that at the Social Security office. But we said no hyphen, just Pedano and Garrison, please.
Pedano Garrison.
And just one quick
Yeah.
correction. I co-directed Questions of Justice.
Okay.
My co-director, Clark Burnett, is in New Jersey this morning.
All right.
Probably listening in.
Well, salute to Clark.
Yeah.
All right, and thank you for this. So, just to give people a quick background, this film unpacks complicated relationships between police and marginalized communities, following officers of color in the era of Black Lives Matter. We start nationally and focus in the city of New Haven, right? And we also have our very own New Haven native, Sergeant Shana Kendall.
Yes.
How you doing?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I did not know when we first conversed through text message that you were who you were.
Oh, really?
Because I got a grouper. With brother Don Sawyer in it, and I saw the film, and I'm like, wow, I'm gonna text this person. I actually thought it was Kelfani, who we got Kelfani in the building. What's up,
Sure,
Kelfani?
what's up? What's up? Yeah.
We have a men's group that we kind of meet up with.
Sure.
I thought she was one of them,
You thought I was one of the men.
and then I'm like, wait. Oh, this is Shana Kendall. I have seen her before. I've heard of her
Yes.
before. And so, yeah, so it's great to really have you here.
Yeah, thank you.
And you're also, we were talking about your professional fitness.
Yes.
Is it bodybuilding or is it fitness?
So it is bodybuilding, but what I compete in is called figure division. So
Okay.
it's a division of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So yeah,
All right, cool. Well, I will not talk about this show.
Right.
But we definitely got to talk about it somewhere
Certainly,
else.
okay.
All right. So yeah, I want to really get into this because there's a lot of I researched a lot and spoke with a lot of officers and other people in the community who speak to officers of color. You know, I know we had the issue that happened in Hamden with the officers that, you know, clearly were
New Haven.
yeah, or was it New Haven?
well, it occurred in New Haven,
occurred
but
in
it was
New
not
Haven.
New Haven
Okay,
police.
yes,
Right.
it was Hamden Police.
Hamden, yeah.
And one of the comments that I said was that I know personally of the police officer who was involved, and one of them, and the barbershop, the brothers in the barbershop know him too, and they're like, this is a good dude. He's not a person that, you know, wants to use his badge and his power to, you know, beat people down. Like he's a good dude from what we know him as. And so it was kind of tough for me to see him in this light, the way he was being portrayed. But at the same time, it's like once you become a cop, it's like, yo, you left us. You know, you crossed over. You know what I mean? So this subject,
Which is a sad thing.
it is. And I spoke with some people and they were like, unfortunately, once you become that blue, you know, once you put on that color, you know, you're not black and brown enough for the community. You know what I mean? Right. And so I kind of want to start the conversation with you, Shana, who, you know, I would love to know what you felt like when you first became an officer. And did you feel like that challenge, that conflict in your community?
And how long you been an officer?
It'll be 10 years.
10 years.
September 8th, yes.
Yeah.
So no. So when I became a police officer, because I'm from the community, I grew up in New Hallville before moving to Virginia, and then recently the Hill section of New Haven. Um, so I did not feel like I was too blue when that happened. The reason for me becoming a police officer was because of my connections and relationship with the community and knowing, the circumstances by which they come from, because I've come from the same,
Hood.
circumstances. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, when I hear that, especially if you're saying that that's what you received from the community, I start to think, well, what kind of cops have they been encountering for them to, summarize it? That's what they feel. Have they met me? But no, I didn't. I never felt like I'm too blue to be who I am, which is an African American female. So no,
Never felt that.
yeah, no,
That's good.
I never felt that way.
What I know, one of the I read an article where you spoke about your brother and how that was an inspiration for you to become a police officer.
Yes.
And you wanted to make a difference.
Right.
So what took place after that happened with your brother? Was it just the passing of him, and that you were like, I want to fight, against this injustice and these people who are in my community causing this? Or was it more about, I want to become the positive part of this, of this force?
Yeah, so when my brother was killed in New Haven, there were two detectives working the case at the time. He's retired Sergeant Stephen Teague. He was a detective at the time, so he worked on my brother's murder case. And two black detectives related very well with my family, literally as though it was one of their family members that had passed away, answered calls from my mom at 2:00 in the morning talking about nothing that had to do with my brother, but was just there. And the impact that they had, not even so much that I wanted to do police work, but the relationships that they had, although they were still doing their job, kind of was like the lines begin to blur. And it was kind of like, are you doing this as a job, or because you really truly are invested in this because you see my brother as a human being? And so that is what caused me to want to get into policing, the relationship that I saw that they had, and that police aren't always bad, and there isn't always a disconnect. It's the police officer that you want to be to the community.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. And do you feel like we have enough black police officers from our community
No.
in New Haven? No.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get into that more.
Sure.
There's a lot to unpack right there. Aaron, I'm gonna tell you, at first when she said I wanted to bring the director with me, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. It's cool, definitely. Then I'm like, let me research him. I'm like, he's white. I'm like, I didn't know.
Co-director.
Co-director. Is the co-director black? The other one?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Would you have done it if it was too white? No.
No, definitely not if it was too white.
Okay.
Would I have done it if it were just me? I didn't.
Wow. That's good to know. And talk a little bit about that. What made you feel like if it was just you, it wasn't an area you wanted to take on?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a good guy. I think we all think we're good guys.
Yeah.
It's not possible for me to have a black experience. I grew up in the South, and I'd say 20 minutes drive from my house. When we were growing up, we would enter a town on the way to visit and hang out with friends, and there was a sign that said, "Welcome to Grants Lanes," so like a big, Morton salt mine there. Otherwise, it's sort of in the middle of nowhere. And then there was a little old Jim Crow era sign still hanging on a barbed wire fence that said, "If you're black, don't let the sun set on your back."
Get out of here.
So I was born in the San Francisco Bay Area, and then my dad went into business in East Texas, and I always felt a bit like a fish out of water. I mean, the Bay Area is a melting pot with its own problems,
Sure,
right?
sure.
And not to say that made me any more capable of telling this story. But no, I think this is a story about our need to open a conversation and come together.
Yeah.
And so that's how I could enter into it.
That's great. And I appreciate you doing that. Do you have an intention on showing on really, because I've spoken with white people who have said, how can we be more beneficial or more helpful to, the plight that a lot of black people deal with in society. And I've always said that take what you learn and go speak to other white people. You know, do you have an intention on really showing this to other white communities? And you know,
my hope has always been that the black community would feel heard, honored, and respected in this film, and that the white community would listen.
no doubt.
That's right.
It's really made for white people.
Yes.
Is there anything particularly that you could point to in your life that made you take the stance that you've taken on dealing with those racial lines? Because it's a very thin line between, hey, no, I'm for people, period. You know, one human family, and then that line is so thin you can cross over and be like a radical, you know, on
Right,
you know.
right.
So is there anything that, you know, happened in your life?
Yeah, feels, well, this is gonna sound really epic, but I had a youth pastor whenever I was really young and age 14, who's actually a Kiowa Indian, American Indian, and he asked if I would join him and his family, who had just been asked to lead a group of people to run across the United States.
Wow.
The idea was to sort of run across the United States and pray for our country, particularly as it related to the way that we got founded. Genocide and broken treaties and this sort of thing. And, you know, the thing was organized mostly by white people. And they asked my friend Spencer if he would lead this thing. And watching what it was like for him to actually do that, to put on his regalia and then have to dumb things down so that the white people could hear. Watching him have to leave the run and come back and leave and come back just to take a breath.
Yeah. That was inspiring enough.
Changed me.
That's
it changed me. It opened my eyes.
So Kafani, I know we were talking a little bit yesterday. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was this concept of residency requirement.
Sure.
And I feel like this is a area where a lot of officers who aren't from here, who are from suburbs and aren't from the New Haven community, use this. As I learn more about it, can you talk a little bit about what it is and how sometimes that's used as a way to get around the requirement to be a resident and be a police officer in New Haven?
Sure. So the first thing is, law enforcement is an exciting profession. It's an honorable profession. It's attributed with the highest degree of morality and the highest degree of sort of respect, right? And so, it's naturally attractive to people who want to make contributions to society. But then there's this sort of conversation that I think black officers know very well, that some people go into law enforcement because they want to bust up heads. Or they want to go where the crime is because they want to get into action. Typically, these, unfortunately, are white males. Sometimes it could be black males, it could be Latinx males, it could be black females, right? But when you're in law enforcement, you often hear these sort of discussions.
And you're a former police officer, just to make that clear.
No, I'm a former police officer. I'm currently at Yale University, and the courses that I teach involve ethnography, race, and policing. I'm leaving the Bulldog Nation and heading over to Quinnipiac University to become a Bobcat, and I'm excited about that, hanging out with my brother Don Sawyers and the community there. But in terms of the residency requirements, for people who don't live in the city is often, the urban cities is often where the crime is, right? And so we want to get into it. And so you have folk who, as part of going through the process of becoming a police officer, there's often these residential requirements. You have to live within the city or proximate to the city in which you're working in for obvious reasons. We want you to be culturally attuned to the city.
Right.
We want you to understand the mores and the norms and the values of the city. Doesn't mean that you have to agree, but we want you to be literate in that local culture. And so what officers sometimes do is, in fact, they'll rent an apartment. Maybe a couple of them will get together and rent an apartment just to be able to claim, I live in New Haven, when they really live out somewhere in the sticks, or actually sometimes even cross state lines. And most of us know that, right? And so what you end up with is a police department. You got the quantity, but you don't have the quality. You got many officers in blue, but they don't live in the city, so they don't know the city. They're just coming in for action. And what makes this cut the rug, or they want to get the experience of working in these sort of tough populations, but then they return to their home cities. Now, what in fact happens as a result of that is that New Haven residents, sort of in a de facto process, train and certify police officers only for them to leave. And I don't know what the cost here in New Haven for training a police officer, but it can run as much as $60,000.
So hold on. Let me just slow it down for a second. So New Haven residents, we are paying for the training of police officers in New Haven. Am I hearing that right?
Absolutely correct. And I just want to say this, that we need to look at the attrition rate, and we need to look at where these officers, once certified by Connecticut Post through New Haven, where they're going, because what's happening is that we're paying for the training and then they're up and out. And
so how long until they leave?
It's a good question. Maybe.
Yeah, so most of our officers are on the job for maybe 3 years or so before they're leaving to go to smaller towns.
Really?
Yeah.
And we pick up that bill?
And so the smaller towns don't have to pay for the smaller towns.
Sorry.
Wait, that's my alarm saying that it's getting hot in here. But on a super Saturday. But the smaller towns don't have to pay for the training. So we're literally subsidizing these smaller towns' sort of maintenance of their law enforcement professionals. Wow. That's a de facto process that's taking money out of the city.
Yeah.
Taking tax resources out of, and also taking people, bringing people into the city who don't have any intentions of learning, caring, loving.
It's a disconnect.
It's a major disconnect.
Total
but
disconnect.
I can cut the sister off.
Yeah.
Oh no, I mean I was agreeing with you with that. Unfortunately, we do have people who want to become police officers. Do they want to become police officers in New Haven? I'm not sure. New Haven does hire a larger number of officers at a time than smaller towns. Sometimes when smaller towns are hiring, they're looking for 1 or 2 officers, where New Haven is looking for 40 or 50 people.
That's right.
So you get on to New Haven, the chances of you getting on, if you can pass all of the phases of the testing process, you get on. And then a smaller town would like a certified police officer with the experience of working in New Haven. So, I mean, what Kafani is saying is absolutely right.
Wow. So essentially, we're picking up the bill of pay, and how much is that, by the way, when it comes to police training? And
yeah, so as you said, it could be up to $60,000 for recruit training.
We're a training ground.
Right, but I would also mention too, not just the fact that they're going to these smaller towns, but these smaller towns do pay more and they do have better benefits. So when I say that you literally have to be invested in the city to go through, I have no plans on leaving New Haven. When I wanted to become a police officer, it was for New Haven only. It wasn't for any other towns. It was.
If I could drop a clue bomb, but we can't. So let's just give it up for Shana real quick. Sticking to New Haven.
Yeah. So, and I think a lot of that comes from because my connections are still in New Haven. My family lives in New Haven. I'm in New Haven. You know what I mean? So what I feel about being a police officer in New Haven is because I live in this city, and therefore I want our police to be doing the right thing, and I want our community to trust the police, because I feel like you can trust me.
Yeah.
But I also realize that I am not solely the New Haven Police Department.
Is there some way that we can actually, is there a process that some police will go through to vet to see if they have that in them? Is there anything factual that could
have
be
what
to
in
say, that love, that I want to be here, I want to be here, I want to do
so
this,
a cultural connection.
Yeah, a cultural. Is there anything?
So you're probably the second person within 2 days to ask me that, and I'm afraid we do not have a vetting process to see how invested you are in the city of New Haven and its communities, and the diverse population that we serve.
Is that something that you could see that could be put in place?
I would think it would be interesting to put into place. I think Kalfani would probably be best to
I think
come up with a way that we
Absolutely.
could go through, like a vetting process, maybe some form of.
And just to complicate that a little bit, a question for the both of you would be, I mean, I was in EMS for a very short period of time, but doing ambulance work. And one of the things I noticed, and I think this would be similar in the fire department or the police department, is that people in EMS are just sort of professional, sort of shut down people. They shut their emotions down. And it's a protection, you know, it's a survival mechanism. How, just to sort of layer into that question, like how do you actually unpack that with people who have this innate ability to just sort of like shut down as a survival mechanism? And I have to qualify that by saying I don't see you doing that. I've witnessed you, and you actually don't do that. But I would say that most people probably do.
So, so my brother was killed 2004. 10 years later, I was actually on the job as a detective working when my 15-year-old cousin was killed on the same street that
Oh
my
my
brother was killed.
goodness.
So with that, like,
Lord.
ability, my partner and I heard that there was gunfire and that there were victims being sent to the hospital. I heard the street, everything. I went to the location working, and I saw two of my cousins on the gurneys, trauma bays, and it wasn't until a supervisor came, grabbed me, and was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you know, we have to make sure that we secure the crime scene." And it didn't really process to me until I stopped and was like, "This is your family," you know. And then that's when it was like, okay, this is a reality to me, and this is what's going on. Obviously, I was pulled off and was able to, you know, tend to my other family members, but you do have that, because let's face it, being in law enforcement, it's a profession. You know, you are a professional. You know, you're not some gung ho cowboy cowgirl that's, you know,
not
out
supposed to be.
Right, right, okay. And so, you know, there are times where, you know, we arrive, or at least I arrive to scenes, and you see devastating things, you know, and it's very hard. And perhaps it's because of the things that I have been through and the things that I've seen. It's very hard to disconnect and just do the work. You know, you want to make sure that people are emotionally okay.
Yeah.
And so for those that are, you know, able to maintain this wall, and it's just the job and just the facts, and this is what we have to do, not really connecting with people, but not understanding why people aren't talking to them. I'm speaking from my position, which is something, you know, I'm very empathetic, and, you know, I'm able to feel the emotion that people are feeling when, you know, certain things are happening to them.
Yeah.
So
Kofani, you want to?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting that Remedy started off the earlier discussion talking about therapy.
Yeah.
You know, I remember the old saying that men cry in the dark, but also police officers cry in the dark. And the fact that we cry in the dark, in part explains why there's such a high suicide rate. Next to the military, police officers commit suicide more so than any other profession. Maybe fire department next, I don't know. But certainly police officers have a high rate of suicide. And in 2019, we still are sort of begrudgingly sort of able to talk about therapy in law enforcement. For me, I want to see the emotion. I mean, I connected with the first time I saw the film, maybe almost 2 years ago now, when I saw Shana cry. Because if you can't feel humanity, then you don't need to be a caretaker of humanity, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so there's cognitive dissonance that happens in law enforcement. I never understood it.
Yeah.
I mean, I recall one time where I arrested this woman for prostitution. I grew up in a community in Newark, New Jersey, where prostitution was, it abounded, right? And in the back of my patrol car, she explained why she also had some drugs on her, why she did drugs, and why she was, selling herself. And she explained that she had 3 kids in a hotel. And I had the option to go ahead and take her down to our local jail, but I decided to give her a ticket and let her go, right? Because I understood the sort of human aspect of that. she was still essentially going to have to account for this.
Yeah.
But could I have complicated her life and her children's life that were, left in a hotel? Could I have called defects? Probably, yeah. But I decided to pull over the car and let this woman out, or in fact, go back to her children with a warning or whatever. But so we have to sort of tap into this sort of empathy. And you can get that from people who are local to the community and who are attuned to the local culture.
Yeah.
You can't get that from people who don't have a sense of what's going on.
Or don't even view you as
Right.
somebody of value.
Yeah,
Right.
because see, so the other part of this is that, and that black officers we need to be sort of talk about, because before we go into law enforcement, we know that society there's racism, there's white supremacy, but when we get into law enforcement and go through the training, we become that blue person and we forget all the history and all the things that sort of we had questions about, question of justice, right? That we had, and so black people lack credibility. We have a deficit of credibility. White people have a surplus of credibility, right? And so what that means is that you lack moral authority, right? And that you are subjected to the most traumatic, this is fitting for you to go through trauma, right? And so these officers are distanced from us just by the mere fact that we represent people without credibility. And so to have these folk come into our communities and work, we're only amplifying the problems, right? So, yeah.
So, Aaron, going through this process, editing, filming, interviewing people, what have you learned about the experience of black officers during the Black Lives Matter movement?
Yeah. It was interesting because, we would be in the car with, I'm thinking of Officer Finch. He asked us
Officer Paul Finch.
Yeah, Officer Paul Finch.
New Haven?
Yeah, New
Okay.
Haven, and Sergeant Paul Finch.
No.
Yeah, great guy. And, he just asked me, are you Blue Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter?
Oh, man.
And
He's white?
He's black.
He's black.
He's
Okay,
black.
okay.
We interviewed one white officer who was gracious in the sense that he was our ticket in.
Okay. Of course.
And good guy. His
You always got to have a white person for your ticket in.
apparently. I mean, I had to really bang that door down. My professor kept saying, "Keep knocking, keep knocking."
And I got a white guy. Oh, come on in. You're good.
Exactly.
So, yeah, you're talking to Paul.
That just to finish that up, poor Officer Hartman did the best that he could.
Okay. Salute to Officer Hartman.
Yeah, very good guy. I feel, but then thinking about that same sort of predicament of trying to talk about this with an officer of color, Finch was Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
He's not going to pick up the
flag.
sign.
Right. Yeah.
He's black.
Yeah.
I don't think you can be black and not Black Lives Matter.
I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe.
And I will also ask you, just from yourself.
Yeah.
How genuine do y'all feel these officers were being? Because one thing I could tell you, as being a person in the community, being in the hoods, where are these great people at?
Right.
Few and
Yeah,
far
Shana,
between.
you never pulled me over, Shana.
Never. You here when I got...
She's never pulled me over.
Where was you when I got banged in the face with handcuffs behind my back, pulled my locks back and banged me on top of my forehead, literally, bang! And I'm like, oh, did you really have to decompress my neck? But
Yeah.
where they at?
Well, this is a perfect question, because Officer Finch is asking me, and I'm thinking, well, I know the answer for him, but how is he going to respond to this? And of course he didn't respond to it.
Right. Okay.
But he let us in.
Yeah.
He let us in, and and he talked about what it was like to be stopped as a teenager by an officer, not having done nothing wrong.
Right.
And have a gun waved in his face while all these cars are going by, people he knows. And he's like, I didn't like that so much. And he talked about what, I never really got into much trouble, and this sort of idea of what I conducted myself in a certain way.
Yeah.
And so this is this is tough stuff.
It really
This
is.
tough stuff, and I think that they were genuine. I think they really were genuine, are genuine.
It is a really tough situation. There was a moment where I was this close to being a police officer. I went through the physical. I even took the lie detector test, and I said, nah, not in New Haven. I can't do it. And I felt as though I was too close. But I'm going back years, But looking at it now, I really want to encourage more people from New Haven.
That's right.
Black people from New Haven to become police officers. We need you in there. What do you think the resistance is?
Exactly what you said.
Okay.
Being too close. And unfortunately, I feel like that is the reason why you should
Absolutely
become,
That's right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To this day, I mean, people see me and they call me Shana. People that I know that grew up in the neighborhoods that, did whatever they did in the neighborhoods that I was growing up in. And I don't see what you would think would be, I'm too close. They're going to look at me different. They're going to think that, I don't remember where I came from or anything like that. I really don't see that.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people are scared of themselves and not really knowing the stigma that is on policing, especially, a lot of people don't know, but it's a thing that's implanted in there. We know the policing started because of slave patrols. So as that progressed, there's a stigma in there. There's systemic racism in there. So do you feel like some of the citizens, some of the community members feel like, I don't want to become part of that? Because I know some of them that when I went to school with them, whatever, great people. As now you meet them at the cop, and it's like you looking like, bruh, I know you. Why you acting like this?
Well, I have experienced that, and I feel like, and maybe you could tell me if I'm wrong, but is there a type of, like when you get into the military, it's like, these are my brothers, like these are my military brothers, these are the soldiers that are with me. We went through war together, we trained, we went through boot camp. Is that the same with police officers? Because I kind of feel like some brothers that I know that have become police officers do start to act a little different. And it's not because just they're police officers. They're really acting different with me. And I'm wondering, is it because they have now said, I have taken an oath and I am no longer this, I'm more blue, is there a process through training that kind of gets your mind there?
So obviously you go through training, and yes, you do stick together. We all have to make sure each and every one of us goes home to our families at the end of the night, and that's
Absolutely.
that. The reality is that what's wrong is wrong and what's right is right. We are not taught to, if an officer is doing something wrong, being disrespectful, violating someone's rights, that we go on with that because that's my brother, that's my sister officer. No, not at all.
But are you taught to stop it?
That's within you.
Yes.
You're not.
That's a moral
You don't have
thing.
to be
Absolutely.
taught to stop something. We're adults,
No,
you know.
absolutely.
You don't have to be taught to stop something that you see is wrong. You don't have to be taught to intervene if someone is handcuffed and you're punching them. You don't have to be
Absolutely.
taught that. You have a moral compass, and if your moral compass says that's wrong, stop it. Handle that officer. Talk to him out, on a sidebar, but make sure that you handle the situation. Also, that has to be within you. That's nothing that's.
So I agree with you. One more quick question. So is there a real thing where police officers, if you're not with your comrades in the field, or let's say you do tell a guy, hey, stop, we got to stop, that you won't, the serpico thing, then you're going to a call and they'll back off you?
So does that happen? I could say, well, I can't for certain say, no, that does not happen. Have I seen that happen before? No, I can't tell you that I've seen that happen. Whether it's policing or any other profession, no one likes to be scolded or it's told that what they did was wrong, right? So would there be some type of apprehension? Yeah, maybe, but I don't see that someone is stopping to help a brother, sister, officer because they realized that they had done something wrong. But, like I said, it has to be something within you. It's nothing that we're taught. As far as like the change that you're talking about, like people changing, that is actually unfortunate, and it's also comical to me because I am who I am as far as my profession, but the people that I know, they know who I am.
Yeah.
You're
very well respected.
I
I
talk
see
to them.
that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's nothing stopping me from being human,
Thank you.
being
And thank you for your
Shana, not
service.
always
Thank you for your
Sergeant Kendall,
service.
Yeah.
Thank you for
so,
your service.
So unfortunately, we are out of time. I know it happens that quick. Aaron, I know I asked you, can we premiere or can we somehow preview the movie? Is that something that the public can do?
Right now, the way for the public to take a look would be to go to our Facebook page at Questions of Justice Movie.
Okay.
Is the handle. And they can make a donation we're expanding the film, and I will reward them with being able to see the film. You guys, on the other hand,
We're making a donation.
well, that would be wonderful. But I want to say thank you for not seen the film, having us here today. That I didn't realize that. And
Yeah.
of course, I should have realized it, and I didn't.
I was trying to get it through Calfani, but it was last minute.
Well, you're welcome to it, and I'll have it to you before the end of the day.
Thank you so much,
bless
all
us.
of you, for joining us.
Yeah.
The conversation's not over. We're gonna keep this going. So just thank you for your work. Thank you for your service. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
94.3 WYBC. Make sure you turn into Electric Drum coming up next.
Peace.
Peace.